Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, we are very excited. We are kicking off a whole journey, a whole experience, because we are going to be reviewing The Sopranos. And my gosh, this has been a desire of ours for the longest time. Like, for years, we've been wanting to do this. Both Sarah and I have not seen The Sopranos before, and this is like a staple of like great television writing and creation. Just like the legacy of the show is so vast, and it's really finally time for us to inform ourselves, you know?
Yeah, it's so exciting. This has been on my watch list for so long. And I've never taken the plunge, it's always seemed like such an investment, like when you haven't watched a show and there's this iconic show and it's only, I think, like 6 seasons, so it's not too bad, but it just feels like an investment. Like, okay.
Oh, for sure.
Am I ready to invest all of this time into the show that I know is great? I just haven't made the time. But the time is now. Here we are. We're doing it. Sopranos, season 1. We have arrived.
It's crazy we both haven't watched this show yet either.
It's especially crazy that you have not watched this show.
I know. Well, it's funny watching this first episode. I've started the show probably like 7 different times because I'm like,
Wow.
I need to watch the show. Like, I'm going to love this show. I feel very confident. And every time I start it, I feel like I'm about to embark on a journey, and I've always started it during like busy seasons of life or whatever. And I was like, I need to give this show my whole self, And now is the time. We're gonna do it. And this is the type of show you can't just like watch in the background. There's so much that's so smart and sharp about this that like you really have to give your full self to it. And I'm not ready to make that commitment yet, but here we are. We're doing it. I'm very excited. I'm so thrilled by this.
Yes. Oh, me too. This is going to be so good.
Yes. Okay, so today we are on episode 1, kicking off this whole journey, the pilot episode, and episode 1 is titled The Sopranos. I guess if you haven't watched the episode yet, we're going to give you a spoiler at the beginning of all of our episodes. This came out now 26 years ago. So, if you're like us and you haven't watched the show yet, this is your sign from the universe to go watch this iconic show and then come back and do this with us, honestly. Come on this journey with us. So please check out the episode before listening to our conversation. All right, Sarah, episode summary for episode 1 of The Sopranos.
Yes. A mobster passes out at a family barbecue and seeks therapy to understand why.
Interesting. They're fixating and focusing on him passing out. Okay, yeah. I mean, it is kind of the center of gravity of it. Yeah.
It is the
central. There's a lot more that happens. Oh my gosh. But, okay. What is your episode title of choice in TV and Us tradition for this first episode?
My episode title is Birdman.
Nice. Very good. A whole emotional plot line with that bit. My episode title is Waste Management.
Indeed. Yes. It's a very important job.
It's the bread and butter.
It is. Well, yeah. Times they are a-changin'.
Times are a-changin'. Okay, well, let's dive in. Let's talk about this first episode. What stood out to you? How do you feel about it? Are you hooked? Are you not hooked? Did this live up to the hype so far? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. This so far has lived up to the hype. I am intrigued in, this world and continuing to get to know this family and everything that they're doing and going through. The thing that, and I mean, I really don't know much about The Sopranos other than it's beloved and it's, about this like mob family. Like that's That's all of the information that I have about this show. Um, so I didn't expect it to be as funny as it is. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept finding myself laughing out loud just alone watching this episode, which feels like insane behavior. But this episode is so funny, and just the way that the actors are delivering their lines, the lines themselves are often hilarious, the insane situations that they find themselves in, and then also just the, Tony trying to like tell this therapist about his life, but also trying not to give any details about breaking the law. Also hilarious. So I was unprepared for how funny this episode is, which was just a delight to discover. And so I'm curious to see if that same
Mm.
tone will be maintained throughout the show, because sometimes you make a pilot, but then once you actually get the show, once the show gets picked up, then you like change some things. But I hope that streak of humor continues, because I think that uh, just provides such a different take on these mob stories that we're so used to. So I'd love to see like a comedy mob show. So we'll see if that's where the Sopranos goes. But either way, I'm having a great time so far.
Yes. Very good. Love it, love it, love it. Uh yeah, man, I ate this up. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was grinning ear to ear the whole hour. I was like, oh, just also knowing there's this whole long story arc and a trajectory to go on. I also didn't know much about The Sopranos other than it's about a New Jersey mob don, and something I've heard through like just listening to commentary about like and other things. People will reference like the ending and the way that the Sopranos ended being iconic, blah blah blah. So I know that apparently lots of good things potentially happen as they traverse this whole story arc, and I was pleasantly surprised by the humor as well. Yeah, I think that it's a very specific style of humor too that is not so in your face. Like one of the moments that I love is Tony Soprano's voiceover going, "Yeah, and we had a breakfast meeting," and it's like the meat market. It's just it's a little bit more subtle. You have to kind of pay attention to it a little bit more, and I love that. I think that's really cool. I hope they continue that for sure in the next episodes and kind of the vibes of the show overall. It reminded me a lot of kind of the leap that Goodfellas takes with depicting and showcasing the Italian mafia, which I think The Sopranos takes even further. The humor plays into this too, which is just like this is all kind of ridiculous, like in a lot of ways, Tony Soprano is this powerful mob head, but there's a lot of scenes where he's just a fool and being ridiculous. In the like second, third scene and moment of the show, he's wading into his pool with his full robe, following a family of ducks. Like this is not Don Corleone. Like we are painting a different tone to the rules of this universe and this universe that we're inhabiting in. So I love those bits. One thing that I found really interesting about this episode is, and especially the like kind of last few scenes, is how it's painting this picture of kind of a multi-generational story. And I found that really fascinating, exciting, and there's a lot of like themes that I think will be fascinating to watch over time. So we see the relationship between Junior and Tony, some of the tensions there, some of the feelings of like back in my day, we did it like this. And then you feel that same thing between Tony and Christopher of like, kids these days, like there's no loyalty, there's no code of conduct. And so this feeling of time passing and times changing, I think is a fascinating thread line that potentially will be explored through, rightfully so, an Italian mob family in which there are multi generations that are very close and collide with each other in these fun ways. So I'm fascinated to see that aspect. I didn't think that there would be such an emphasis on kind of those like parallels that are being painted of times changing and generations passing down and also changing from what the previous generation stood for. So that's going to be interesting to see.
And I also love that, Tony's response, his physical body's response to the times changing
Oh,
is,
yeah.
you know, depression, some mental health issues, this passing out thing. Like it's all connected with that and how he's handling all of the stressors of life. And I love that is like the introduction into this story and into this family, because I mean, most of the people who are watching this show are not involved with the mob in any way, shape, or form. Like a lot of us, we're just living our lives like normal. But we know what it's like to feel stressed at work. We know what it's like to have to, deal with
Mhm.
aging parents, or, we know what it's like to be the in the middle as, the older generation is getting older and you have to take on some
Yeah.
responsibility, but the younger generation is also coming up and saying like, hey, I want the power too. Like we know what these things feel like. And so I love that, even though we might not be able to relate to the particulars of what's going on, we know what some of these things feel like. We know what it's like to have dysfunction in our family and all of that. So I think that this is
Yeah.
so far a very relatable show, some relatable characters, even though they're in a completely different context than we're in. So I think the therapy angle, while very funny, is also brilliant in that
Mhm.
empathizing with these characters and getting invested in Tony kind of right away, because we're seeing such a vulnerable side of him and such a human side of him too, instead of him being the Don Corleone, who is this like larger than life figure.
Yeah.
Like Tony feels, so he feels like one of us, and there's something about that I think is really smart for the show to start out with.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He's so relatable. Like uh, having to balance and juggle so much of the like work pressures, the family life, the multi-generational pressures, also kind of the added pressures of him taking care of kind of this community too, and the young people in his community. Uh, I felt stressed for him seeing all of the different relationships he's having to keep in check and take care of, and managing all the different contracts that he has to do. It's a lot, and I think that feeling of being overwhelmed by all of the different realms of your life is universal. It is like modern day life, American life in a lot of ways. And I think that it's fascinating to see how this character that is so specific and grounded in this world and this place, he's a middle-aged mafia don, and yet he feels like one of us. I thought it was really neat in the opening scene how we spend so much time in the quietness. Like there's this long, really great opening credits sequence. It's chaotic, and then we cut to like silence and him sitting in this chair, completely out of his element, so uncomfortable, and having to face himself. And I feel like the immediate relatability we feel to this protagonist that is in this environment where he's supposed to be bearing his soul and he has no idea how to do that. And it's horrifyingly just uncomfortable. And I feel like that is so human. And it was so cool to see them take that time for us to be like, oh, yeah, I know that feeling. Like, I'm with you. I'm with you, Tony Soprano. Know nothing about you. You're probably a terrible man who's done a lot of bad things, but man, you're just a human being like me. And I think the time spent in that quietness and the discomfort of it all was really important to ground what happens and all the high action stuff that happens over the rest of the episode. But I was surprised at how quietly this whole show starts.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's such an important contrast, like you mentioned, like when things go off the rails, because we get some explosive moments later on in the show. I think that those are more jarring because we've spent so much time in the quiet with Tony. I also love how, he's trying not to like be vulnerable or
Yeah.
express anything in this therapy session, but he actually shares a lot, and so I
Yes.
love that because you see him being kind of resistant and like, no, I don't need to be here. Like, therapy is stupid. I understand Freud because I went to school, like all of this stuff, which is so funny. But then
Mm,
he also shares these really insightful bits about him. Like, I love kind of toward the beginning, he talks about feeling like he missed the window where
mm,
everything was good, and he
yeah,
thinks that everything is going downhill now, and the
yeah.
best days are behind him, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that's so vulnerable. Like, that's this, and to be able to articulate that that is what you are thinking and feeling and experiencing in that moment takes so much self-awareness, which I was also really surprised by. So I loved, this kind of like tug of war that you're seeing within Tony of, you know, being self-aware enough to be able to express these really hard, meaty, emotional things, and yet wanting to appear like the tough guy. And you see this like push and pull within him. And I think that that also helps make these therapy sessions, that we revisit throughout the episode so interesting, because like, which version of Tony are we going to see? The one that wants to and can be vulnerable? Or are we going to see the tough guy? And you're never really sure, who's going to come out, or maybe it's a mix of the two and you don't know what the balance is going to be between them. And I
Mm.
think that that helps keep those dynamic instead of those kind of becoming like stale or run of the mill. Like, I don't know, I was so interested every time we were back in the therapist's office, because I was like, what are we going to find out next? Tony Soprano, please keep sharing, I want to learn more.
Yes. In my looking ahead, that's one of the things that I have jotted down is I hope that that framing device is continued to be used strategically, not too much, but at the right moments. Because in a lot of those sessions too, those short little scenes that we get throughout the episode, we also see the weather change in him so quickly as well. He'll come in and be like, I'm good, I don't need this anymore. And then the next moment there's this really deep sadness and vulnerability, but then you see him almost be afraid of that and be like, oh, I'm exposing too much. And then he'll peacock and he'll get angry or he'll get worked up about something. And you never know moment to moment what's going to come out, but that's all, everything that he is showing and how he's reacting is so human. Like when you feel vulnerable, yeah, you're going to cover that up with some anger or go on a rant about like, the things these days, blah, blah, blah. But it's masking something that is beneath that all, that is really real and really soft and tender, but just has not had place to be expressed. And so it's fascinating to watch Dr. Melfi also just like read this man to filth and figure out how to draw these moments out of him where he can express a little bit more freely than he would have. And I feel like you get this feeling too with Tony that deep down he has this desire to share, but he just never know how to, and has never had space to. And so she asks a little bit more, and he things just start tumbling out of him. And I think that's also a fascinating part of how he's wired, is that you feel this need to share and connect that he has, that's not been stuffed down so far. It's actually right beneath the surface for him.
And I think that that helps to make Tony so far a really interesting
Oh yeah.
protagonist to follow. I feel like a lot of times when we see, and you know this genre a lot better than I do, but like I feel like a lot of times, your typical like mobbed up dude, he's a tough guy, and this hard outer shell and all of this, and kind of this
Yeah.
like impenetrable guy. You're never gonna see the ooey gooey center that's in there. But I love how this show is starting, because we get to see that of Tony, and not just in the therapy sessions too. Like, I love that we get to see him interacting with his family too. I thought it was so funny, the bit when he's at his daughter's volleyball game. Like, I love how normal it is, and you're just seeing them do just regular life things. I don't know that I've ever seen a show where you see a mob boss going to a volleyball game and cheering for their kid. Like, it's such a different way to look at this genre, that I'm really enjoying that we get to see Tony as a full person, not just this scary mob boss.
Yeah, it's neat to see the progression and order of what we learn about Tony, especially in that opening section, because we meet him in the therapist's chair. And then we pretty much meet him soon after, wading into his pool, meeting some ducks, coming in, doing like preschool breakfast time with the family. And that moment where we see his violence and aggression comes later, when he's chasing after the dude that owes him money. And that's just a different order than we usually see with a lot of these like mafia characters that have been iconic in films or in shows, which is you see them at their like larger than life persona first, and then you might see that intimate like side of them in their home with their families. But it's flipped in this one. You see him like doing preschool breakfast time and that's him. Like that he's kind of been stripped out of all of his like pomp and circumstance. We don't even meet him in relationship to the other made men of the family until later as well, and seeing kind of their deference and their respect for him. That also comes much later, and so it really flips the order and the kind of onions of the layer. We kind of start in the middle of the onion, and then we see the outside layers much later, which is, I think, a fascinating choice for the show to make.
And I mean, depending on where the show goes, I think also like a really brilliant choice too. Because, I mean, we love like mob shows, mob movies. It's so fun to like be in this world and see like the politics of it all and see how decisions are being made and, the explosiveness. We love all of that. But I hope that this show is going to be much more like character focused, like this episode is. And I think if that's where the show is going, then that's really, really smart to kind of differentiate this, that yes, there will be explosions, there will be all of the things that we love, but we're also studying who this character is and presumably like who this family is. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting way to go, that can help like ground this over the long haul. Because if you're primarily focused on like the events and the spectacle and everything, that's cool, we love that. But I think we need that like character grounding and that character study to make this work over years of a show. So I'm hoping that we continue to go deeper into Tony over the next however many episodes are in the Sopranos.
Yeah, so many. And I think that's what seemingly the show is also most captivated by. Like even a lot of those set pieces with like the checks and the guy who loans him money from HMO, like it feels like a backdrop to these characters and personalities. There's so much time spent in the episode that I was surprised by with Tony and his wife, with Carmela. Like we learn so much about like her wiring and what she's motivated by and the things that she's captivated in, and how religion feels like this place of purpose for her and meaning, and she's really caught up in all of that, and like that's her wiring. And then her desire to connect with her daughter, like this really is like focused on primarily being a family drama more than it is about being this cool twisty story about like mafia betrayals. I'm sure there will be plenty of that, but it does feel secondary to us getting to know who these people are. We get to meet Livia and get to understand like what her fears are. We get to meet Uncle Junior. Like it almost feels like we've gotten introduced to all of these people, and they happen to be doing these things, but we're really learning about who they are, most importantly. So the show doesn't spend all this time on like who are the checks and why are they the foes, and okay, now we're gonna do like us versus them, and there's gonna be all this like plotting. I'm sure that will come, but once again, it's about the people in like the people dynamics, which I think is more interesting too, and how all of that those plot points will draw out these different sides of the characters is most interesting.
I love Tony's mom. Uh she's so funny to me. I love the way that we're introduced to her too, like him knocking on her door and her not answering for the longest time. He's like, "Ma, it's me. Open up." Who? Who are you? Like she doesn't even trust that it's her own son. Won't even open the door to him. And then I love her complaints about like not answering the phone after dark. I'm like, my girl, I get you. Like, yeah, no, but no good will come of anybody calling that late. Don't answer the phone. Like, I just, I love everything with his mom. I'm so curious to see what else they do with her. But I think that's another really relatable, part of the family
Yeah.
piece of it too, of like,
Yeah.
if your parents are getting older, and like what do you do and how can you care for them, and like how do you make sure that you are, being the good child
Yeah.
make sure that your parents are cared for, and what if they don't want to be like, it's just all so relatable, everything that he's going through with her, in addition to being this like wonderful piece of humor. But then I think that bit at the end of the episode with Junior and his
Mm,
mom kind of makes this whole like, at least for me, that was a little bit surprising that Junior went to mom to kind of threaten Tony a little bit. And I found that to be
yo.
so fascinating. And I'm like, ooh, okay, we got some drama starting within the family, within this older generation too. So it's a more subtle ending than I expected this episode to have. And yet it is full of that like juicy drama that we really came to expect from this show.
I mean, yeah, it's insidious. It's Shakespearean, It's the pride and the ambition of Junior wanting to be like, I never had my moment, and I'm at the end of death, and this is gonna be my moment. So even the thought landing in his mind of do I need to take, what does he say? Something may have to be done, Livia, about Tony. Just the thought even crossing his mind is more than we need to know about who Junior is and what he's been waiting for his whole life and has been thwarted time and time again. I'm so fascinated by Junior. I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. He feels like such an agent of chaos. Honestly, at a point where he's like got nothing to lose too, which is like the most terrifying type of person to deal with, because it's like, yeah, I'm going to die by natural causes, or I might go out with a bang and like swing for it. So I'm so amused by it. I love the audacity of it. Gonna make for some really interesting plotting, and also how information is going to get passed around the family. I think it's going to be really fun to see too, and how that reveals their own agendas, their own desires, their own insecurities. All of that's going to be real good, really good. So, um, I loved that ending bit. I mean, talk about a great like analysis of a "Are you hooked?" ending of an episode. Oh, that's good. Uncle and Mama plotting. She has a look in her eye, looking out that door, out the
Hmm.
car window, where I'm like, oh man. All right, Livia's got something cooking up.
Yeah, she knows what's up, which I'm so curious what they're gonna do with her, because I don't know. There's more going on with her than meets the eye. So that's going to be fun to see. Like you were saying, these different characters colliding and these different interests kind of coming to the forefront as people
Yeah,
start making their moves. So
yeah.
Junior fired his little test shot here. We're gonna see what he's gonna do next, though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the other interesting aspects of that seems to be revisited a few times in this episode that I found really interesting is this idea around values, code of conduct, and kind of anarchy, really, that is ensuing, that is unsettling for this family and their position. That Tony talks a lot about in his sessions, but is kind of revisited multiple times. This is very much in line with kind of like historically just the amount of ways that the government has taken opportunity to prey on those like human selfish desires to protect yourself and kind of throw your previous loyalties under the bus. I mean, the entire plot line spoiler alert of Goodfellas. So, that is very much in line with the development of kind of what does loyalty look like, which is so much a part of this world of the Italian mafia and honestly any mafia in any culture. But that feeling of unsettling anxiety that comes with when there are no systems of values and loyalties that people feel committed to, what does that do for the system at large? And I think this is like, it's commentary on obviously this mafia family and what Tony's feeling, but it really is valuable to think about outside of that context too, and in our society, in our organizational systems. Like, there's kind of this mutual social contract agreement of like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and this is that partnership that is going to come together. In the tech industry right now, it's a big theme of conversation right now with the layoffs and the AI moment and all this stuff of like, what is that mutual relationship between employee and employer? And when that is broken, man, it creates all this like feeling of, where can I trust, and what do we do next? And that unsettling feeling that sets in. And so it's fascinating to see in this mafia family them really talk through what that looks like. And it's kind of the cherry on top is Christopher at the end telling Tony, yo, I have this opportunity to sell our story, and I'm going to get to act in it. And I'm going to get to tell this story because you didn't recognize me in this way. And I just think that's really interesting to see this younger generation say, like, I don't value this the same way that y'all used to, the way that Junior's era used to. And it's more like self-focused versus for the collective. I think it's a whole fascinating theme line that I wonder if it'll be explored a little bit more. And I wonder if there's just this kind of meta commentary on the state of kind of like organized society that exists today, and kind of the government systems and structures we put in place to create places where people can flourish, whether you're flourishing in a mob family or you're flourishing in American society. Like there's interesting metaphors and symbolism and parallels that I'm sure is part of kind of the thinking in here.
I love that. Flourishing in a mob society. Yeah, let's go. But I also think there's the interesting piece too of like the more like Americanized the generations get, the more individualized they get as well. Like if you are an immigrant coming to a new community,
Yeah.
you have to rely on others that are also from that same community. That's just usually
Yeah.
how it goes. It's not how it has to go, but a lot of times that's how it goes. And
Yeah.
that collective care for the community, and it's very community driven
Mm,
and very relationally driven. But then, as you become more American, then it's usually becoming more individualized. And so I think we also see that interesting
mm.
generational divide of,
That's so good.
Christopher is younger, and he probably doesn't know as much about Italy and where they came from, and doesn't have that same experience. He has a much more Americanized experience, where Tony is probably closer in age to, the older generation who came over from Italy and heard stories of what it was like, and grew up in this more collective environment. So I think it's also interesting that Tony is kind of trapped between these two
Tension.
different like ways of doing life, between the individualism, which he definitely experiences here in America, but understanding the collectivism and that like heritage that he is coming from, and kind of holding both things, and kind of that tension that must create in him as well. So I think that's just another piece layered onto all of the other things that we have going on here.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. And the fact that in that final section of the episode, we get that really tender, sweet moment where Tony and Meadow wander into this church, and him telling the story of his older relatives coming and building. And, like that feels very much in the text too, of like Tony has that connection point, but his children don't. That generation doesn't, and it's only through telling those stories and sharing of those family memories that can be passed down. But it's going to look different. It's going to be diluted, integrated with more American culture that is established for that generation. Yeah, and how that gets passed. So, which is why I think the relationship between Tony and Junior is really interesting too, because Junior is even closer to that. And the era that he lived in and the feeling of times are changing and everything's different now. And this wasn't the mob family that I was a part of. And him kind of like mourning that a little bit and wanting to reclaim that by maybe taking Tony out. I don't know. But the desire to reclaim something that was lost.
Yes, and we're gonna see just how he goes about doing that because
Ooh.
he is planning some things. Ooh, look out for Junior, y'all.
Oh, I'm so excited by it. um, okay, any other big things that we wanted to mention before we give out some TVNS awards?
I think another thing that I'm interested in is kind of these people that are on the periphery of it. You
Yeah,
know, so we see the whole bit with Artie's restaurant and you
yeah,
know the hit is going to happen there and they don't want the hit to happen there, but Artie isn't going to shut down his restaurant. He's not willing to take the tickets to get out of town because it's from the mob and he doesn't want to
yikes.
be involved. His wife is just she is paying attention. This lady knows what's up. But I'm
Yeah.
so curious what's going to happen to these people that are on the periphery. They know these people, but they aren't in with these people, and I think that is really interesting. What is the collateral damage going to look like in this like outer circle of people? I think it's just really interesting that this episode really highlights Artie and his restaurant so heavily. So I'm curious to see what they do with that character, and then are we going to be introduced to like
Mm,
more characters and more businesses that are part of this world
integrated.
but aren't in with this family. So that's just an interesting way to kind of think about this too. It makes this show feel like it's very rooted in place, that
Mm.
there are normal things happening. There are normal businesses that are doing their stuff that aren't mob businesses. And so it's just what is going to happen to them? We don't know.
And Artie's particularly interesting because he has awareness of who they are, and yet he seems to not be playing by the established order, you know? There's a clear difference between those that are in the orbit of this and are in the system, those that are in the system and complying with the system, and those that are aware of the system but somehow are not complying. I'm like, Artie, do you want to die? Like, my dude, you cannot just do whatever you want, like there is a need here. Follow the rules. Like, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see what Artie's fate is, because there's clearly he's not totally clueless, but he's clueless in some ways, and that's a dangerous place to be. You know who you're dealing with, but not fully enough to know how to get in line. And it'll be fascinating to see how Tony and his henchmen also choose to deal with what they view, I'm sure, as the problem of Artie, which is someone that's not within their control. This person can't be controlled, and that's a problem for them. Uh, so what will they do to either have him bow to the system, or, I mean, got to take him out? I mean, clearly we see that they have a method, and they have employed it with the HMO, the art insurance company dude, who owes them money. You know, we're gonna blackmail you. Do you want to die? No. Okay, pay up. And that's different because Artie's within the orbit, and there's clearly like emotion and feeling and all that kind of stuff, which I think will be fascinating to see. When does that get in the way for these characters to do what they need to do? But when will they have to like eat their feelings and take a dude out? So that'll be fascinating to see.
Things to look forward to, you know?
Uh,
What's going to happen with
we
Artie?
love to see it. We love to see it. Yeah, yeah. Um, Okay, one other thing that I want to mention is we got a pinky ring. Our dude, the one and only, Tony Soprano, with his pinky ring shining in the light in his therapy session. So, more data points for your pinky ring theory. For those that don't know what the pinky ring theory is, would you like to share your thesis? A quick summary, perhaps? Sarah?
Yes. Yes. So my theory, and I am limiting this to movies because TV is a lot more variable. It's not usually consistent across TV. But in movies, if there is a white straight male who is wearing a pinky ring, most of the time that means he's a villain. I don't know why. When I'm watching things, I notice the jewelry situation, and I feel like a lot of the times pinky ring on a white straight male equals villain. Not always. We found some data points that don't support this hypothesis, but a lot of times it does. But I imagine in the show of The Sopranos, the pinky
Oh,
ring theory will hold because it
oh
usually
yes.
does in mob movies, and there's quite a few pinky rings in this episode, namely Tony Soprano. So, yeah, yeah, that was a big one. Where he's just like sitting in the therapist office and the light just like shines off of it.
I usually don't catch them, and
Yeah.
even that one I could catch. So that
Good
one
job.
was blaring in our faces. Very good.
Yes, it
Although
was.
perhaps by the end of the show, uh, Tony Soprano is just a human. He's not
Mm.
a bad guy. So jury's still out. So really, we're just watching the show to find out, is this a good data point or not for the Big Bang Theory? That's our main reason. Yeah. Um, okay, let's give out some TV and Us awards. So this is a tradition that we like to do here on TV and Us. We like to give out some fake awards because we can, and it's fun. So we have three categories. The first category is most family-oriented character. So this is given to a character on the show that exhibits however you want to interpret what family-oriented means. The next category is most explosive moment, given to a moment on the show that really just intense. Intensity is high. And the third category is double meaning dialogue. I think pretty self explanatory. There's lots of that littered throughout the episode, which is really fun. It's so much fun. I eat it up. So that'll be really fun for us to give out some awards for. So the first category is most family oriented. Sarah, what is your choice for this one?
Okay, I want to give it to Carmela for when she hears a
Ooh.
noise outside. She gets a whole machine gun and is just ready to mow somebody down. Like, wow.
Wow.
The woman
Wow, wow, wow,
is
wow, wow.
prepared. She is going
She
to
is
protect her
so
home.
fascinating. I cannot wait for more of her. You just know that she's off her rocker.
Yes, I'm here for it.
Oh, so good. That's a great choice. Really good. Um, I'm giving this award to Mom and Papa Duck, taking care of the little ones. Great family investments and love and
Mm-hmm.
care that we get to see. Teaching them how to fly
Mm-hmm.
is important work.
Yep. Yep. Indeed.
The next category is most explosive moment. What is your choice for this one?
Yeah, I want to give it to the car chase that Tony engages in. I loved that moment because up until that point, like we know that this is a story about the mob. We know this. But
Yep.
like the whole episode has been pretty chill and tame
Yep.
up until that point. And that's when things start to go off the rails and you're like, oh, okay, yep, we're going to get some of the mob stuff that I was expecting. It just took a little while to get here. So I love how late that scene comes, and it's kind of jarring when you're like, oh, okay, we're doing mob stuff now. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually my pick too. Um,
Wow.
Mostly because tonally, yes, it kind of explodes. But also I just find it really amusing because most of the time we see fun mob stuff like on the corner of the street at twilight,
Mhm.
we're gonna do a hit. This is like in a corporate insurance company parking lot. And I think
Yeah.
that was also just like in broad daylight. Like it's probably like 9:30 in the morning because they're drinking their morning coffees. Like that was also surprising too, because you usually can like anticipate, the guy's walking down the street, the
Mhm.
guy's laughing too loudly over there, that's gonna die. And you get to see that happen. But just the surprise of the moment of like, oh, we're doing this now. Okay, here we go. That was a
It's
great
so
moment.
good.
It explodes. Yeah, yeah. The next category is double meaning dialogue. Lots of choices in this episode.
Mhm.
What's your choice for this one?
Yeah, so my choice is also related to that scene, and
Very
it's
anticipated.
when Tony describes that scene as We had coffee.
That was my choice, actually, too.
Yes.
Nothing. We had
We
coffee.
had coffee. No big
Cut
deal.
to coffee is splattered on the
Yes.
asphalt and man is running. It's really good. Really
I
great
do
cuts.
I
Some
do
great editing.
appreciate yeah, I appreciate that coffee was present. So like he wasn't lying. I mean, he was lying, but like there's a kernel of truth in the middle of the lie. And I appreciate that we're learning a little bit more about Tony. He will lie to your face, but there will be something truthful in there somewhere. You just have to kind of decode what he's saying. So I love that little detail.
Shout out to the editors too. Like the pacing of that sequence, the juxtaposition, all of it was so funny. Really, really done. There's multiple moments like that where someone will like he will say something and you cut to the reality, and that dissonance is really fun to see. A great time. Yep. Okay,
Oh, it's
looking
so good.
ahead, we have now fully set sail on our journey.
Yes.
We're waving to the people on shore. Goodbye, we are going on this journey. What are you excited to see looking ahead?
Yeah, I'm just more interested to I'm interested to learn more about this family. You know, we've kind of been introduced to everybody and everybody's so colorful and interesting, and so I just want to keep going down that trajectory.
Yeah.
We already mentioned it earlier, but I hope that the therapy sessions continue because I think that those are hilarious, but also a really good framing for
Mm.
everything that we're seeing. And then I just want to keep seeing like Tony in normal everyday life situations. I don't know why I loved that volleyball scene so much, but I
Yeah.
did. And so I want to see like more things like that really show that this family is just trying to be a regular family and doing all of the regular family things, but then you also know that there's all this mob stuff happening below the surface. And I love that juxtaposition, so I hope that the show continues to play with that.
It was very funny. That whole volleyball sequence is hilarious because he's like, "Yeah, go," like very normal dad thing, American dad thing. And then he's talking to his dude, being like, "All right, so we're gonna do the hit," and then, "Yeah, good job, get the shot." Okay, so that corner, okay, it's like you're just like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" um, I mentioned this earlier. Yeah, more Dr. Malfi framing. Really fun, really interesting. Lots to observe and unpack about this character in those sequences. It's just, they're really funny too. Like, just, it'll cut to Dr. Malfi's face and she's just like, keep going. And I think she's really bringing it. So that's really fun to see. Um, I really am intrigued by what Junior's going to do next. He kind of represents like the old guard, like the traditional way things have been done, and I think there's going to be a lot to interpret and kind of get to sink our teeth into, seeing what choices he makes. How does Tony respond, and kind of this like duel that's about to go down between these two figureheads of the family. So I hope that that's juicy and fun. And then there's a lot of mention of Tony's father, and I think that there's a lot more that obviously we don't know yet, but is going to be uncovered about Tony's father. He seems to be almost this looming figure in this episode without being alive or us having ever met him, but he's mentioned so many times. So clearly lots to unpack there about why Tony is the way that he is, some of the like self-esteem and insecurity issues that clearly he deals with that I think stem from some childhood trauma that came from dad. So fascinating to see when Carmela asks him when they're out at dinner, "Did you tell him about your father?" Yeah, I told them. And you're like, "Yeah, you did it." So clearly this is a soft spot for you. I think there's going to be an interesting like window into who Tony is through whatever we get to learn about his father. So I was particularly intrigued by that. All right.
Yeah. His dad does feel like this looming presence in this episode. So I'm also really curious what they're gonna do with that character too,
Yeah.
that is now deceased. So, but because
Yep.
you feel him. So the
Yes.
this episode is really intentional in making him feel like this looming presence. So
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have to do
Mm-hmm.
something with that.
But apparently he's a saint. Something tells me not quite so much, not quite, not quite.
In this family, you don't expect him to be a saint?
Nope. Nope, I don't. I'm sorry, Olivia. You're probably a little delulu. That's okay. That's what happens when after people die, you believe the best in them,
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, we are so thrilled, so excited to finally be reviewing the show and really deep diving into it. It's fun for us to get to talk about each episode and kind of do this journey together. So we are fully embarked. This is our review of episode 1 of The Sopranos. You can find it available on HBO Max. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we start off our journey through The Sopranos. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review letting us know if you've watched The Sopranos already, and if so, if you would like to join us on this journey, please do. If you revisited episode 1, let us know what's standing out to you in this time around. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on TV and Us and our other podcast, Movies and Us. By the way, we're on YouTube, so go check us out on YouTube as well at TV and Us Pod on YouTube. We will be back very soon to discuss episode 2 of Sopranos season 1. In the meantime, we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again with y'all very soon.